Welcome to our class today. Today we're going to be going over part 2 of Chaturanga Dandasana. We started it last week where we looked at different ways to work the arms and to work in the wall to build strength and to find a way to keep the balance between the front of the body and the back of the body in the pose. So today we're going to take a look at how to keep this balance, so that the back isn't arching too much or tucking too much. So let's take a look at how to strengthen that. We can call it strengthening the pelvic floor or the core area. So we'll take a few minutes to go over that. If you have any questions, please send it to me on the comments, or you can add them here on the chat on the live. So to get started, we're just going to sit comfortably on the mat. If you need to review last week's class on the different arm exercises that you can do to strengthen for Chaturanga, go ahead and take a look. I linked it in the description in this video. It's also under the live playlists on the channel, so check it out. But if you haven't watched that class, you can do it without having had that previous class. Okay, so to get started, sit in a comfortable position, and then you're going to start out by releasing any tension in the eyes, the ears, and the throat. And this is so important because practicing any asana, any pose, it's not nice if you're just adding more tension to the eyes, the ears, and the throat. And so this is something that you can do before you practice, but anytime, really. So especially when working on the pelvic floor. So take a few breaths and release any tension in the eyes, the ears, and the throat, especially the tongue. So the first breath, as you exhale, release any tension in the eye, the lens of the eye, the inner corner of the eye. With your second breath, release any tension in the ears. And third breath, inhale, and as you exhale, release any tension in the throat or in the tongue. Reducing the amount of tension that you create in your head by practicing yoga, especially Chaturanga, which is a pose that's a little bit, sometimes can be a little harder. So let's take a look at this pose. We'll need a mat. And last week we were looking at starting to work on this pose and then maintaining this balance here so that we're not arching the back or tucking the back, so that we can maintain a length in the back and a length in the front. Okay. So let's take a look at the pelvic floor. I'll bring the computer closer so that you can see. All right. So go ahead and lay back on your mat. And here, you're going to just lay on the mat with feet on the floor. Take a few breaths here and just observe how your body is touching the mat. And so here I have a little bit of my normal curve on my lumbar, and my body is supported by the mat, the floor here. So I don't want to come into a place where I'm squishing my lower back into the mat. So tucking my pelvis doesn't mean remove that natural curve of your mat. So you still have the natural curve in your spine. And then we're going to, just for communication purposes, so this will be untuck, where I untuck my pelvis. I have an extra arch in my lower back, and this will be when I tuck the pelvis. So here I'm rotating the pelvis here around the head of the femur so that the pubic symphysis comes up and the two hip bones here come into the mat. So this is tucking. So untucking, I do the opposite. I bring the pubic symphysis down towards the mat and I lift my hip bones up, creating an arch. So if you try this a few times on your mat, you untuck and you tuck. So tucking usually removes, if you do it too strongly, it removes that lumbar, that natural lumbar curve you have. So it's not flattening your spine. It's just tucking enough so that you're not untucking or that you're not creating that arch. So I'll explain what that means. So if I bring a little bit of height of my pelvis here and I bring my leg up so that the leg is vertical, so I'm not bringing the leg beyond that 90 degrees, and I am bringing the leg down, this angle here will increase, right? So here, this is a 90-degree angle, and I'm bringing it, almost to a 180 to a flat angle. If this is really, really tight, so if this area of my leg is very tight, I can arch the back here and make the leg go down. I'm exaggerating for you to see. So if I have a lot of length here, I'm able to keep my pelvis stable and allow just the leg to come down. Now, if I have tightness, let's say this is too tight for me, then I arch the back and I bring the leg down, but I don't increase this angle, meaning I don't lengthen this part of my leg. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're not arching, that the pelvis is staying stable here. So it's not overly tucked and it's not untucked, it's stable so that this leg can move freely. Okay, and so then the leg starts moving, and if I engage the pelvic floor, then the leg moves with an incredible ease. So to do that, I need to keep this pelvis stable the same way that I would keep it during my Chaturanga pose. So how do I develop this strength to be able to stabilize this and not use the arching, the untucking and tucking to bring the leg up and down? So let's take a look at that. We'll start with one leg. So I'm going to lay back on the mat and I'm going to keep my left foot onto the mat. So left foot on the mat, and this left foot is going to help this pelvis to stay in a tucked position. So what usually happens is when I bring the leg up or down, the weakness causes the pelvis to move also. So here, keep the pelvis stable, not tucked or untucked, just in that balanced position. So use this leg to keep the anchor, right, for your pelvis, and then lift the leg up to 90 degrees, making sure that we bring the heel down to the floor first instead of the toes, so heel down. So that's the movement. So I'll do it with the other leg so you can see. Use the right leg to anchor this balance in the pelvis. And then go ahead and lift a little bit and then lower. So the first few times that you'll do this, you'll see, okay, there's nothing happening. I'm not, you won't sense the movement of the pelvis. It actually feels like it's not moving at all. But if you put your hands back here, you'll notice that you do micro tuck and untuck. So we want to prevent that. So start bringing that leg down and then correcting. So usually we'll untuck to correct. So untuck is a mistake, right? So you get here till about, halfway point, and then you retuck the pelvis. And then you bring the leg down, then reassess, retuck the pelvis, because usually it will untuck. That's most people. If I'm not here watching somebody do it, I can't tell you what your pelvis is doing, but usually the tendency is to untuck a little bit to bring the leg down. So hold that tuck. Okay, and now do it with both legs and see how much you can hold that pelvis in a neutral position. So I bring both legs up and I tuck and I bring it down, and I notice that my body wants to untuck, so I keep it tucked, bring it down. Okay, so this is the motion. This is the movement. Now, as we start refining it, bring your hands here to the soft part of your belly. Okay, and make sure that you're not using your abdominal muscles to do this. So make sure the belly is nice and soft. So nice and soft, and then we come down here near the pubic symphysis, not on the bony part, but on the soft part here, and we bring that muscle here down and we widen. So down to the floor and wide. And then without engaging the abdominal muscles or without, leading with the abdominal muscles, keeping the belly soft, we lift and you'll feel it tense up and rise up. So bring the muscle down to the floor, widen, soften the belly, and with that, widen, make it very, very wide here on the pelvic floor. So widen the muscles, make them soft, wide, and then bring them down. Okay. Without overly arching the back. So do this a few times without tension in the eyes, the ears, and the throat. And I'll show you a different way to work on this in a second. So again, bring the fingers here and lift, and then widen, tuck the pelvis. And you can see how in my body, I start arching here, so keep it nice and tucked. And come down, widen, keep the belly soft, and bring it down. So it's pretty challenging to do it like that without tensing the face, but eventually you get that lift in the pelvic floor. That's really great. So this is just a basic overview, and of course there's a lot more to it, and as you practice and start getting better, you'll see huge differences in how much strength you have on your pelvic floor. So let's take a look. Okay, so let's take a look at doing this with support so that you can sense what it would feel like if you were able to engage that pelvic floor correctly. So this is a really great way to sense that. So I get some blocks and I put them against the wall. So I set it up like this. And you can do it with just the blocks. I think that would be a really great way to sense this positioning of that, stabilizing the pelvic floor like this, and then lifting the legs. You can also use a rolled up mat here with I put a PVC pipe inside, and we can use this here. Okay. If you don't have the blocks will be fine. Okay, so you come close to the blocks here. Make sure they have enough room for your legs. So I come to the block, and here I tuck the pelvis and I make contact with my sit bones and the block. So I have, as if I had the wall here, but my sit bones are in contact with the block. And I have to come even closer so that I'm very, very, I have that contact with the block and my sit bones, but it's a strong contact. So I come here, and now with that, I'm stabilizing my pelvis, and then I bring the leg up. And if you try this, you'll see that the legs just fly up with ease. So if you can imagine having this kind of strength in an ability to balance the front and the back of the pelvis, and then doing your poses like this, it would be, you would have that feeling of weightlessness. Okay, so you can practice here, just widening the pelvic floor, widening and bringing the muscle down towards the floor versus allowing it to puff up to the front, and really allowing the belly to be 100% soft. All right, and this is, this is the contact of my sit bones to the block. That's the key, and make that a very strong contact. And then if you want to use the roll, you would place the roll here against the block. And then you create kind of a sticky mat contact there, like this. Okay, and so now you would inhale here, soften the eyes, ears, and throat, soften the belly, and then you can bring the leg up. Right, and it'll just fly up. So it's pretty incredible, really reduces a lot of the pain in the hips, in the back, and just gives you the sense of where you're trying to go with this exercise of lifting the legs and maintaining the stability here in your hips, pelvic floor, pelvic region. Okay, so give it a try. Just set up your blocks and then bring your sit bones to the blocks here, and give it a try and let me know how it works out for you. And we'll look at a few more ways to do this to kind of advance a little bit on this practice. So I'm here. Okay, so I'm going to use a yoga wheel just for the height, but you can always use more blocks so that we can do this. So we can start out, you can do this before your practice. If you practice every day, it really is a great thing. You just need to do maybe 5-10 minutes of this. So we're going to start out on the floor with both legs. So if you practice the way that I showed on the wall there, keep that belly soft, softness in the throat, eyes, ears, and tongue. And one more thing. If you have one of these little weights, they're also great. You can place the weight here. Okay, and then we allow the weight of the weight, and you can use a less weight if I think this one is 7. I'm not sure if I think it's 7 kilos. So you put the little weight here, allow the pelvic, the muscle to come down so that you're not pushing the weight up, right? You're just allowing it to release down, widen, get a feeling of like widening the muscle, and then bring the legs up. So when I don't have my support there, I feel, when I bring my feet up first, I feel like I have to lift the weight with my muscle. So eventually it's less and less. So release the muscle down, widen, and bring the heels up, and then heels down by widening and by keeping my pelvis from tucking or untucking. So this would be untucking. So keeping it stable, widen, soften the abdominal muscles, and bring the legs down. So we'll do 10 of these. Keep the tuck, widen, like that. Okay, so this is part 1. Then you can do it without the weight and see if you can recreate that feeling of releasing the muscle down, then widening it, and without untucking or tucking, lift the legs. We tuck to adjust for untucking. So if I feel my body untucking, then I would tuck. Okay, so tuck, widen, bring the legs down, lengthen the chest. Don't shorten the chest when you do this. Okay, after a few ones of these, then we would add a block. And same here, recreate the sensation that you had when you had the weight here. So soften these muscles, widen, and without engaging the abdominal muscles here, widen and bring the legs up. without untucking. Okay, so making sure that you're keeping the pelvis stable. Bring the feet down. And keep the eyes, ears, and throat soft. Okay, after you've done a few of these, go ahead and add another block here. And then same thing. Bring it up to 90 degrees. Keep this from arching, right? So tuck here, and then correct it, and then correct the tuck so that I can have the maximum opening here on this angle. All right. And then if you want to try even a higher prop, we can use the wheel. And if I can get in here. Okay. So we can work like this also. So here, keep the chest lifted and soft eyes, ears, and throat, and then bring the heel down by increasing this length and keeping the pelvis tucked. Soft belly. Okay. All right, so you get an idea of what the work is of getting that strength in the pelvic floor, and slowly, especially if you try the one on the wall, you'll start seeing what the benefits are of learning how to disengage a little bit of the abdominal muscles and really use your core pelvic muscles. So I hope this helps. I hope that you're able to do it. It really does take practice to not use the eyes, ears, and throat, and to keep that stability in the pelvis. And then I'll show you then again, you can practice your plank and chaturanga here and use those same muscles that you've just been working on. So tuck and untuck, and then find the neutral place, and then release the abdominal muscles a little bit. Engage the pelvic floor here, and then when you come down, work on those as well, maintaining that balance in the front and in the back. So I hope it helps. I hope you're able to practice it. Give me any feedback that you would like, and see you next week. Thank you for joining.